Hey everybody, this is Herschel from High School Top 200, and this St. Bede's review for 2016 is brought to you by Fineline Barbers. Fineline Barbers is setting up an Aotearoa barber competition with a major barbering sponsor barbering supplier here in New Zealand, and so they have set up the Aotearoa barber competition for September 2017. It's going to involve the best barbers in the country coming together and then seeing who's the best. They'll have a lot of vendors as well as barber shops turning up and basically getting together as one big following, and they're gonna get together as a network and build up the networks together and just build up the industry as it is, and bring the industry closer together and sort of closer to us as a community as well. And I mean, like, everyone goes to barbers, and I love the barbers that they go to, and so they're there to put on a show and also share some of the talent around the country. So look out for that, the Aotearoa Barber Competition, September 2017, Fineline Barbers. St. Bede's College is, and like, these guys are one of my favorite. I don't know why. I don't know why I like. I don't know why I like the school so much. I just do. I don't know. It's something about them. I just like watching them play. It's one of my favorite ones from Christchurch anyway. So I'm always real interested in what they bring to the field, and the sort of attitude that they bring to the field too. And so this year I wasn't expecting a lot, because I knew that they had a lot of positions that were that needed to be filled, and I knew that the spots where they needed to fill, they weren't actually that confident in the ones that were filling it. I knew that they would have a younger team. I knew that they would have a team that was sort of going to be based on Zach. And then when he went out in preseason, to me it dropped from like maybe a top 20 to 25 team. When they lost Zach, it dropped to like a top 35 to 40 or so, and then they ended up ending up at 40, ranked 40th in the country, which isn't a position that St. Bede's is usually at. They're usually a really high ranked team nationally, so this is sort of new territory and a new position for them. And so, like, even when watching the games throughout the year, I knew that a lot of them were playing under, what would you say? They were playing a new kind of team, an inexperienced roster with guys that weren't specialists in their positions, and so they would struggle a lot. They struggled a lot up front. I think they struggled a lot in the locking position because they didn't really have that specialist locks. They moved players around a lot, pretty unsure about what they wanted as in terms of their positions. They weren't sure who was going to take command because Zach had gone. And if a lot of you don't know Zach Mackay or McKay, I still think he would have been a New Zealand secondary school fullback if he wasn't injured all year. I still think he was one of the top players in the country. It's just sad that stuff like that happens. And so when they lost a player like him, I think that they lost a lot of confidence in where they were going to end up, not even just in the UC Cup, but then also nationally ranked around the country, because they're always one of those contenders nationwide. So they started off sort of a win-loss thing Um, I mean, they just lost to St. Pat's Town, 28-15, which wasn't so bad. They beat Ron Kelly in their second game. That was their first game of the UC Cup, 40-6, which was pretty much what was going to happen anyway. They lost to Nelson, then they beat Waimea Combined, which was a surprise. Like, I didn't think they would because of Waimea's first up wins kind of thing, but they managed to pull it off. And then losing to Christ's 40-19, and then beating Timaru, who were just ranked then. And then they beat Rangiora. And so, like, if you take those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and they were like 8 games, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they were at 500. They were 4-4, 4 wins, 4 losses. It didn't seem so bad that they were 4 wins, 4 losses, because they lost to ranked teams like St. Pat's Town and Nelson and Christ, and then they beat Timaru. And then they played St. Andrews, and then I think the St. Andrews game was more of like a sort of, I think, more of a reality check of where they were at. They lost 16-12 because, like, before that, with the wins and losses that they had before that game, you would think that they would come out and beat a St. Andrews team. They beat St. Kevin's pretty easy. They beat Ashburton pretty easy. Then they lost to Silverstream 33-7. And then beat Lincoln. And so they beat all the easy teams that they were supposed to beat. And then kind of struggled with the rest of them because they lost towards the end. They lost their last 3 games of the season with Burnside, Shirley, and Marlborough, and I don't think it was more or less that they lost it physically. I personally think that they lost it mentally. I think I watched 3 games of theirs this season. 4 games I think I watched this season, and from the ones that I watched, they still had really good players. They still had guys like Luke Glenn. I think Simon Smith went out early. They still had Ruben, Jake Keenan, who's a guy that I think is going to be, pretty special player. Caleb Allison was still playing. Guys like that, and James Anderson, like guys who were very good leaders at the same time. Iona was there, Burton was there, Simon and Ollie were there as well. So, like, they did have players. I think it was just they were just burnt out mentally, not really knowing who the leader was of the team and who was going to take control when they came down to sort of the hard times in the games, and then trying to figure out, well, who are we going to give this game to? Like, I don't think there was an outright leader, which I think if they had that outright leader, I think that they would have won a lot more games, and the team would have been a bit more settled in the way that they played their structure for their games. And so, like, I kind of feel sorry for them in that way, because they started off a year with a team that they weren't quite sure of anyways, and then their top-ranked player goes out, and then the younger guys sort of had no one to sort of really rely on to get them over those big games. I have no doubt St. Bede's will be back next year, because I still think the younger players that are coming through are going to be enough, are going to learn enough from this year to take through to next year, and so they won't have that much of a downtime sort of within their rugby system. But this year just wasn't the greatest year for them, and where St. Bede's is used to being. No doubt they'll come back. I have no doubt they'll come back. I have no doubt that they will find their leaders in the team, which I think will be Simon Luke and Jake will probably be the main guys, with Ruben, who's going to be a real key fella for them next year. And so the backline looks like it's going to be something special, but that's just what I thought it was this year, and it kind of had that feeling every time I watched them that that's what they were going through. That's my review for St. Bede's. We're going to see a different team next year, so we'll look forward to that. And yeah, that's my review for St. Bede's. Peace.